So meds, as some of the 100 of you may know, I am on medication for my ADHD now. So here's a bit more of a specific life update, like in regards to the medication, because I think there's a lot of like, I don't think discourse is the right word, but there's a lot of crap conversation about medication. For the record, these are empty. You can't have that many. Yeah, I'm just gonna go over what I'm on and how it's affecting me and how it helps with my ADHD and some of the kind of pros and cons to the medication I'm on. So obviously I'm not a psychiatrist, definitely not a doctor, not a professional, not any authority to speak about medication or ADHD. I'm just sharing my experiences, whether that's so my friends and family can understand how it's affecting me a bit better, so there's something that we can refer to, or just so someone has one more experience to add to their own research, because it's good to get a variety of things. I think I was quite fortunate in my like diagnosis and my medication and things like that, but you know, sometimes you want to hear a positive story. And another disclaimer, I'm going to be talking about things like food, how medication affects my appetite, how I work around it, and how I regulate my diet around the medication. So if you're sensitive to like speaking about food, or I think if you've had any trouble with food, I think I wouldn't recommend watching certain bits of this. I wouldn't be offended if you skipped this and just sent me a message if you had any questions about medication. That's fine. Or I'll put some timestamps in the bottom, just so you know which bits to skip, because it's not always easy, is it? And of course, like, everybody is different. Everybody's body is different. So never see this as advice. I'm just saying how it's affected my body and how I'm working around it and how I've reacted to things. So let's get into it, and then hopefully I can edit this to cobble together something that makes sense. So right into it, I am on Elvance. In America it's called Vyvanse. I'm not going to humiliate myself and try to pronounce the correct name for it. I'll pop it down there. Starting from the beginning, I guess. So I was prescribed this at my first assessment, and this is the medication that my psychiatrist, I was going to say the lady, the nice lady who gave me pills, that my psychiatrist said that would work for me, and this is the one that she thought would suit my symptoms. And I took her word for it because I trust the professional. And one of my concerns going into this, because with my ADHD, and I've spoken about it in depth, something I've really struggled with is getting these thoughts on track, and kind of the brain working too fast and everything happening at once. It's a lot. That was my concern, and that's what I wanted to kind of mitigate, so I could like do my work and exist without it being exhausting, and hopefully sleep at night sometimes. One of the main reasons that I thought medication might be the route was, as we know about ADHD, you have lots of thoughts. It's overwhelming in the sense that it's too much. It's like a quantity of thoughts thing. Makeup bag. The older I get, the more thoughts were like being added to my brain, and it was just getting to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. And so each day was just a struggle. And so I was just hoping I'd get to the point where the noise could just be quieted a bit. So if we frame it in a sense of me being at work and what I'm meant to be thinking about. So let's say I'm doing this spreadsheet. There's my brain, and then there's like, here's the thought, and there's a spreadsheet. And there's lots of room in my brain for other things. That's how it kind of should be, right? And then you can kind of get on with the spreadsheet. But the way it is for me with ADHD is there's like another thing and another thing, and you're jamming it in to the point where you're just trying to cope with the sheer volume of what's in your brain. And the spreadsheet is there, but it's not the problem. You're just trying to get rid of everything, you see? And you can't really focus properly on the spreadsheet until you've gotten rid of all the extra. And that's what I was hoping meds would do. I was hoping it would get rid of the extra. I hope that my Professor Brian Cox demonstration makes sense for you. Yeah. So it seems that medication is the obvious route, right? But actually, I did have my fair share of concerns. There is still a stigma around these things. And if you don't know much about medication in general, you'll think it's something that might numb you out if you don't need numbing out, or you might think it's something that might have adverse effects or affect your emotions too much. My concern, as self-indulgent or narcissistic as this might seem, was losing my personality, which, I don't know, is that an arrogant thing to say? maybe, but my brain works really fast, and there are some aspects to having a brain that works really fast that I quite like. I quite like being able to pull jokes out of my arse. I quite like making links very, very quickly and surprising people. There's elements to being impulsive in a conversation that I do like. There's a lot of it I don't like, there's a lot I do. What is the self? That's a whole other YouTube video, which we won't even go into right now. But yes, I was worried about that, and I was worried about being irritable, and I was worried about all that stuff. I thought I might just become someone who just thought slowly and didn't make these links and only thought about the task in hand with nothing else going on behind the eyes. But that's not true. That's not what the meds do. And I had my concerns to my psychiatrist when she was prescribing me, and again, it's a fair concern to have, but she said that's not what the medication's going to do. And she gave me examples of people that she had prescribed before, and she said that if you describe ADHD as like a song playing in the background, in its most basic form, just lots of songs playing in the background, she says what it should do, what the medication should do, is just quieten the volume, like turn down the volume of that extra music. So in theory, if you use a demonstration from before, it should just like remove all the extra thoughts, or most of, so you can deal with task in hand. My spreadsheet, if you remember. And my psychiatrist was really good, and she said any concerns about your mood, any concerns about being irritable, any concerns about anything really, just to let her know, because you have something called the titration period, which is when you start off on a much lower dosage and you basically build your way up. So the highest dosage you can get of Elvance is 70 milligrams, and the titration period just involves starting from 15 milligrams and working my way up. And each time I increase the dosage, I'd have an appointment with the psychiatrist just to see how I've been getting on. So I started on 15, which is actually half a tablet. And I felt like when I was on 15, I felt like it removed some of the thoughts for a bit, but not loads. And I couldn't tell if it was a placebo. So it was kind of like a couple of hours it peaked, and then I was kind of back to normal. And then when I was on 30, it was a much more long-lasting effect. So like a chunk of the thoughts were kind of gone, so it was easier for me to deal with whatever the task was. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Then after a little longer, we went up to 45, which was 1.5 tablets. That was the trickiest one to do, because the tablets, they come in capsules and it's powder. At least my pills do, I don't know everything, but it comes in powder, and if you're gonna split a pill, you have to like put it in squash, shake it and divide it. It's not the easiest if you're on 45, because it's a 30 and then you split a 30. So what I would do is I would have a 30 milligram tablet, split another 30 in squash and have half the squash. Are we making sense? And then kept going up, etc. Appointment, going up a bit, and then I settled on 60. To be honest, I could probably do 70 milligrams, but there's quite a few side effects to the medication that I don't really want to suffer from. So because I went private, until we settled on a dosage amount, I had to pay on average about £100 for each set of tablets, depending on dosage of course. And then when I finally settled on the right amount, I flipped over to the NHS, which is great. So my prescriptions are now about £9. Amazing. Something that you need to watch out for during the titration period, it might vary depending on your doctor, depending on COVID, like if you can go in or not, but you have to keep track of your blood pressure and your heart rate, because as these are a stimulant, they can have quite the effect on you, which I have learned. And it was something I've been quite worried about, to be honest, because my heart rate since being on the meds is pretty high, but because I don't want to have a heart attack, I decided to go for a slightly lower amount, because I'm definitely teetering on too high. There are ways to regulate it though. I found that if I do 10k steps a day, my heart rate is a much more healthier place. Or if I do a bit of cardio, as long as I'm active and I avoid caffeine, my heart rate is pretty stable, so that's good. So I'm not too worried at the moment, but every time I have a checkup, I'm very, very conscious of it. Right, so in terms of like the effects of it, I found that depending on how I take the medication, it's different. This isn't medical advice. I could be very wrong. Everybody's body is different. But if I take my medication in the morning before I have my breakfast, it kicks in after like maybe an hour, and it's like a burst of focus. So it happens I probably peak between 2-3 hours after I've taken the medication, and it lasts maybe 2-3 hours. It's not an intense hyper focused level of focus, but it's just a case of when you're working on a task and you're getting on with it, which is all I could really ask for, which is great. When I take it without food, it peaks and then I crash. There'll always be a crash because it's a stimulant. You're gonna crash to kind of how you are anyway, especially for someone who doesn't sleep very well. So there's always gonna be a crash. And if I take it without food, it's like a peak and crash. However, if I take it with food or in a drink, it's like a steady kind of focus, and then you kind of teeter off towards the end of the day. And if you time it just right, you can go to bed like when it's here, and it's a miracle. I think the best way for me to describe how the meds work for me is, imagine you have like a budget of your amount of focus. Everyone has a budget. So there's how many hours in a week? 7 times 24. So let's say you have a budget of 14 hours of focus time in a week. So that's 2 hours a day. This is very rough maths, by the way. I'm very aware most people have more than that. Pre-medication, I would say I'd hyper-focus, and you'd have Saturday and Sunday, 7 hours at a time, hyper-focusing on a random TV show down the Wikipedia rabbit hole. So that's 2 days of my focus taken, and then for the rest of the week, it's all over the place. So that's like an extreme example. I hope we're making sense here. And then the way the medication seems to work for me is it's easier to budget my focus. So instead of there being 2 days it's taken up all my focus, it's all spread out throughout the week. Because as you can imagine, if all your focus budget is taken in a shorter amount of time, the rest of the week, it's going to be exhausting and impossible just to exist. So I hope that makes some kind of sense for you. So in summary, the way the medication helps me is A, it quietens down all those extra thoughts so that I'm more able to focus on the task in hand. It's a lot less busy in there. And then also it helps me budget my focus more throughout the week, and I have less instances of this extreme hyper focus where that's exhausting. We've also found that when I'm around the flat, if my meds are kind of doing their thing, because it's not always perfect, but if the meds are doing their thing and I see something, say, on the floor, I pick it up and put it where it belongs. That's unheard of. It makes me so happy when I realise I'm doing it, whereas before, I just wouldn't. I for no reason, and not for being messy, not for being lazy, I just wouldn't. Like in that split second between seeing the thing and picking it up, I would get distracted by something in here. And I don't know, and I'm just happy about that. I mean, the flat's not tidy at the moment. I've been busy, but hopefully eventually I'll sort this out. But you can't see it, it's fine. And then I was speaking to my sister about how medication affects me, and she says that when she sends me like a link to something, like, I don't know, a shopping link or a YouTube link, I click on it straight away, and I never used to. I used to just put it off and then forget about it. It's the little things, my friends. I know, I'm very aware this is all me, but I don't really want to speak for people who are also on medication or ADHD, because it's different for everyone, isn't it? So like socially and conversationally, I found that it's easier to listen. So let's say I'm in a Zoom call. Before it would just be like physically exhausting just trying to listen to whoever's speaking. It would be like having to like pull myself up over the thoughts and just like straining. That was horrible, actually. That was one of the worst things for me. And then when the medication's doing its thing, I can listen to what they're saying. I can take it in. I'm taking in what they say. No offense to anyone I've been on Zoom with, but if I'm on the Zoom call and it is boring information, it's not really relevant or doesn't affect me, or that I don't really need to know, I will get distracted because it's boring, rather than before where I'd get distracted even if I wanted to be interested, which makes me happy. And then I found that my friends might not agree, but when I'm listening to people in a conversation, I am listening to what they're actually saying and I'm thinking about what they're saying. Whereas before, no matter who was talking to me, there was still a million things going on here. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I still talk too much. I'm still impulsive. I still interrupt. My friends might not realise that there's been a shift. It's quite funny though when people say, oh, but your meds had no difference on you. It's like, oh God, you had no idea that I wasn't listening to a word you said before. Whoops. I don't know whether to be offended or proud. I wouldn't say I'm more blunt, but I found it's a lot easier to say what I'm really thinking. So let's say you're having a conversation with someone and they say, how are you, Melina? You know the answer is, I am fine, thank you. It's a bit cold, but I don't mind. Simple enough. before, what a boring life that is. So before, if someone said to me, how are you, Melina? I would have like 1,000 different scenarios, kind of like Doctor Strange, and when he's working out the different endings to the Infinity War, I guess. I'd have all these different scenarios around me. So now there's more of a track. So even if I'm being really fast in my conversation, it will be along a line. So it will be, I'm doing fine, thank you. It's cold. I can't believe I needed to bring a jacket today. I bought a new jacket yesterday. God, I'm talking too much about myself. Let's talk about you. How are the dogs? It's more linear. Whereas before, it would be either nothing, and then I'd regret not really saying anything, or it would be everything in one line, and then the person would get confused. How are you, Melina? I bought a jacket yesterday. You have dogs. It's cold. How is the water? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know if I'm making sense now, to be honest, but I hope so. And getting to grips with ADHD gives you some confidence as well. So maybe it's a psyche thing, maybe it's a confidence thing, maybe it's coupled with the quieter volume, but hey ho. We're here. I mean, pills aren't perfect. If you hate your job, you're not going to want to put the effort in. If you're watching a film and it's genuinely boring, it's not suddenly going to become interesting. And there's also ways that the pills kind of lack, because it's the human body, you know? It's different every day. So I found that when I'm PMSing, or when it's like PMS time of the month, I don't get like emotional PMS symptoms very often, maybe every few months, every couple of months. But when I do, and it's that window, I found my meds, it's like they don't work. I've not looked into this, not a scientist, this isn't scientific advice, but I found that they don't really have much of an effect. Like, there's a difference between me talking fast, me getting overly passionate, me like off on one, to being off on one in 12 directions and not having the steering wheel, you know? Whether that's the hormones fighting with the dopamine in my brain, with the medication, whether that's the medication just getting like flushed out my system quicker, don't know. I need to find more research on it because I feel like there isn't loads, but I could be wrong. If anyone knows anything about this, hit me up. But it's just something I need to work around. I mean, like a few days every couple of months for the sake of, you know, me feeling better about existing for the rest of the month is fine. I think I can cope with that. And yeah, I think the last thing I want to talk about is food. Again, sensitive topic, but I found that it really squeezes my appetite. So I found it is an appetite suppressant, and I also constantly feel nauseous, which is excellent. It's just what we need. But before medication, I wasn't a binge eater, and my eating was never linked to my mood, which is, maybe that's a fortunate thing. So if I was sad, it doesn't affect how I ate. If I was happy, it didn't affect how I ate. I ate a lot impulsively. So if there was a box of 36 Jaffa cakes, I would keep eating the Jaffa cakes until there were no more. Not for any other reason that I liked the Jaffa cakes. Now I think it's probably just the dopamine, like wanting the, this is a nice taste, let's have another one, let's have another one. Like in an addictive way, but it was never linked to mood. At least it mitigates that kind of thing, but it's hard to remember to eat properly if you're not used to being focused, which sounds ridiculous. And I try to find ways around the getting my nutrients and getting my fill of food. So for example, I'm really into smoothies because a lot of the food I like is plain, and because I constantly, like 24/7, feel nauseous. I feel nauseous now, it's great, it's wonderful, but because I constantly feel nauseous, I don't always feel up to eating my greens, and I don't really like greens anyway, so the thought of like eating a broccoli, no thank you, or peas, no, the devil. So I like smoothies, so I'll put spinach, apple juice, sometimes frozen mango, soaked chia seeds, sometimes I'll put broccoli in there, sometimes I'll shove a Yakult in a smoothie. I don't know if that's okay, but whatever like you should have that day, I'll make sure I have in smoothie form. And then I also like, I'll put a link below, I have this like chocolate vegan protein shake stuff. It's amazing. It's got loads of vitamins in it, and it's great. You can have it hot or cold. And if I have it cold, I might have it in the morning and put my medication in there. If I have it hot, I'll have it as a hot cocoa at night. Really good. Obviously with supplements, you have to kind of watch out that you're not overdosing on a vitamin, but so far so good. Yeah, and I'm also into Farley's Rusks. Is that weird? Because it's baby food, so I imagine it's harmless for adults, and it's got some vitamins in it. And if there's a day where I'm not having my supplements, it's quite a harmless snack to have, and it won't make me want to vom. So, you know, that's my life hack. Or the smoothies help if it's dinner time, I've had my lunch, I feel nauseous, but I don't feel I can stomach a proper meal. I might have literally plain pasta and a smoothie with all the nutrients I need in, and I might have had like protein in a Greggs sausage roll or something earlier, or like a protein yogurt or something. My thinking is, as long as I get full and have energy and I get my nutrients, that's the main thing. Because with the feeling sick all the time, if I made myself these proper square meals, I just couldn't finish it because I feel sick all the time. Again, this isn't nutrition advice, it's just what I've been doing to deal with it. I'm hoping over time this will just subside and I can eat like a normal human being again. Of course there are days where I eat proper meals, and of course if I eat out, I'm sure I'll eat something normal. It's just the days where I feel more nauseous, they're a bit of a struggle. So I have to eat like a toddler. So yeah, I'm sure I covered a lot of bases. I know there's a lot I missed out, and I'm sorry if there's something important I missed out. If you're on medication, feel free to comment. Let me know like how it affects you, of course. Or if there's something that affects me that doesn't affect you, that would be really interesting. I want to know if everyone feels as nauseous as me all the time. But yeah, I mean, this is just meant to be a casual little catch up. So I really don't know how informative this was or entertaining. It's probably neither. It's just more noise to add to the internet, but oh well, what can you do? Maybe one of my family members will watch this and they will learn a bit about the medication, and that's all I can really ask for. So yeah, feel free to comment or message me or anything like that. And if you're one of the people who started their journey or was on their journey with getting diagnosed, getting on medication, when I posted my first ADHD video, let me know how you're getting on. Because I never want to pry, so let me know, and because it would be nice to have a chat and a catch up about it. So because I've been on medication for like 7-8 months now, which is quite a while to kind of like stabilize on it. And I think I'm doing all right. I'm really happy on it, to be honest. And of course the human brain is like really complex, you know, and there are things that affect you that aren't ADHD, you know. There are things that can make you miserable, and these pills only do so much, you know. And I think it's all about learning to live with your diagnosis, learning to live with the way your brain works. And I think once you understand how your brain works, and then you have the medication to really give you that boost, like chemically, it can really change your life. And I hope it changes my life. And I hope that whether or not you are diagnosed or whether or not you are on medication, I hope that you feel like you're on the right path. But what do I know, eh? I only know what's in here. So yeah, see you in the next one, or you'll see me. Ooh.